I think it's a very unique time, probably the most exciting times I've seen to be in real estate.
The expansion of cap rates has really caused a slowdown of the flywheel because people can't exit.
When you have your GP and LPs and you go raise the money, well, you're locked into that ride, so to speak. You only get to go out when the GP says, okay, it's time to sell.
And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, where do you think the biggest opportunity to actually modernize capital markets as we know it?
You can say, I want to take my $1 million and I'm going to go invest in a U.S. asset through stablecoin, and all of a sudden, it's a risk return. So if a traditional value on the property was worth 5, 6 cap, 7 cap, just to get the money out of the country, they said, I don't care, give me a 2 cap. I just don't want to lose 35%. But if you can't explain to a billionaire on a Gulfstream flying into New York why he had to buy a property, you're done.
Because we're always trying to get the highest value for our customer. That was our job, is to sell something, bring the highest value. And so in order to get the highest value, you had to find somebody who has a demand that's unique to others in the market, right?
If somebody says, what did you learn in all your years of financing? $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow.
Welcome everyone, I'm Ed Nwakati. I'm the founder and CEO of Red Swan. And I'm excited to have this conversation today with a good friend of mine, Mr. Darrell Betts, who's a respected partner from Avis & Young Capital Markets Group. We're living through a pivotal moment in commercial real estate today. The market values are shifting, the capital is very cautious, and liquidity is seriously constrained. All the parties today are looking for liquidity at a faster traditional structure, and it's hard to adopt. At Red Swan, we've been listening closely to what investors really want: real ownership, fractional access, and the ability to exit a trade without friction. This isn't about crypto, it's about modernization of finance. Today, we'll explore how firms like Avis & Young and Red Swan can be working together to lead this epic transformation strategically, compliantly, and with the investor's benefit at the top of our minds.
So Darrell, hey, I'm very excited to have you here. Darrell Betts, Senior Principal, Avis & Young. We've known each other for at least a long time. I don't want to age ourselves, but we worked together as directors, executive directors at Cushman & Wakefield.
Yes.
In an office while I was also in multifamily. And so those were really good times.
Yes.
We competed not really against each other, but collectively in terms of volume of business, we always had fun trying to make sure we were on top of the game.
And mutual respect.
And mutual respect, for sure. So this is really why I'm excited to have you here today to kind of talk about where the industry is going. And so, just based on a lot of your transactions, you're seeing a change in the business. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, where do you think the biggest opportunity to actually modernize, capital markets as we know it today, that you can actually utilize with Avis & Young?
And we appreciate it. And it probably would be good to go back for me and explain my journey. I actually think I'm confident, I'm sure we're at the doorstep of the biggest financial revolution we've ever seen in real estate, in commercial real estate. I go back 35 years with a number of the big majors. I was blessed and doing over $12.5 billion worth of deals. I have a team of 7 people for principal with Avis & Young. We traveled the world. My dad was military, and he taught me to think that the world is our playground, and so think very differently in traveling to different places around the world. So we're seeing a transformation occur in the real estate business because of illiquidity. For hundreds and hundreds in the beginning of time, you go back to the banking system. Well, the problem with real estate was that a very few people who want to focus on commercial real estate can play the game. So you have a finite group of investors and people that control and invest in real estate. And what you've been the kind of father of and starting out with the tokenization is going to free up an enormous amount of illiquidity. One of the issues we had, we were talking about earlier, is we've had low interest rates for the last 15 years. And so they call it zero. And so if it's zero today, we're at the federal funds rate around 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say rates have gone up 400%. And I've always said what's going to happen when rates go up, because we were down on costs so low, that it was going to be a situation to where valuation of real estate eroded. And that's what we're seeing today. You don't really hear much about it on the news,
Right.
but we're in the trenches. Our clients that I deal with are multi-billionaires, millionaires, big institutions, people around the world, and I see things coming 6 months in advance because I can start to see issues, and maybe a lender putting somebody on default notice, or somebody that has a big portfolio and they have a basis of 4 to 5%, and now you got a 7% exit and a refinancing cost, maybe a bit lower exit and residual value, but you're upside down liquidity-wise.
Right.
So I think a new instrument that we've been talking about for years, and what has appeared to be passed in the new Genius Bill, which you're an expert on, and I want to continue to learn some of the things that they have in that. I think it's a very unique time, probably the most exciting times I've seen to be in real estate because of the amount of liquidity it can bring to the market.
Absolutely. I mean, you're right about that in terms of interest rates and cap rates. The expansion of cap rates has really caused a slowdown of the flywheel because, people can't exit. They can't get the target price they're looking for, so they can't exit. Banks can't loan because they loaned on a high value, and now the value is lower, and the reserve is kind of wiped out. So that's the problem the industry is having right now. But I think one area that you and I can relate to is that we went after a lot of international investors.
Yes.
And, you got on the plane, flew to Oman, flew to Dubai, flew to India, to Italy, because you're looking for investor clients that you can sell assets to. I think now with tokenization, that opens up the whole world and in smaller segments, so we don't have to now just go to the big guys and ask them to write these huge checks. We can go to family offices and they can participate with as low as $100,000 into buying your assets. Do you see that as being an advantage?
It's amazing what that has just opened up. I'll give you an example. I was at one of my clients who's a multimillionaire in his office, probably one of the smartest stock pickers I've ever seen. And he's got his phone, and he said, all I need is this right here. And he was just playing the stock market back and forth.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, and it'd be great if you could do that with real estate. You can do that with real estate today. You can be anywhere in the world and invest in a property and invest in an asset class that you were not able to get in because you didn't have the liquidity to do it.
Right.
It's been the big boys and girls that have invested in traditional real estate. When you have your GP and LPs and you go raise the money, well, you're locked into that ride, so to speak. You only get to go out when the GP says, okay, it's time to sell.
Right.
So now to have the ability to trade in and outside of an asset class is amazing because, you might have liquidity issues yourself and you need to go ahead and sell and maybe take your loss. Or you can look at the asset and say, you know what, I think that tenant is going to renew, and that tenant does, or maybe they don't renew. There's a time for you to do some arbitrage there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so that's what's really...
And that arbitrage means additional yield on that asset. So even if you bought an asset that's yielding you 8% in terms of dividends, it's a preferred dividend.
Right.
But you can now trade, take advantages of market activity,
right,
whether it be a hurricane hit Houston,
right,
or whether it be COVID hits, or whether it be interest rates go up.
Right.
You can take advantage of that by buying and selling your own inventory, right, to make additional profit.
It's like the Model T Ford just rolled off the assembly line. I think the visionary Red Swan and Ed has foreseen we're going to look back on this time in 100 years and see how it transformed commercial real estate and illiquid assets. And I've always said what's interesting is when you look at real estate is an illiquid asset. If you look at securities in the stock market, you know the exact value of that stock because it's trading thousands and thousands and thousands of times a day. When you get into real estate, which can be good because it's not trading as much. And so where you get the arbitrage on that is you don't have the liquidity and somebody's not putting this immediate value on that property, and you can foresee things. And in the earlier years, that's where a lot of my clients have made hundreds of millions of dollars that the rest of the public didn't know. But now we're bringing in the world to invest in real estate. I think it's going to be an amazing matrix box where you think it might go this way and it's going to go that way, and you're going to look for consultants and advisors like Red Swan or or myself that has been doing transactional real estate where we sell physical properties.
Yeah. Well, it gets even deeper than that. When you start thinking about AI and the data that's coming off of real estate, traditionally we're getting financial statements maybe a quarterly. Some people get financial statements annually, right? But with AI and with technology today, they can actually start scraping daily information on a property.
Yeah.
So as money is collected and going to the bank, that information is going to the shareholders knowing that their average deposit is above average or below average.
Yep.
That means something, right? And so I think when you have that kind of information, that allows you to make trades because you're aware of things that maybe others are not aware of. And you're going to see, just like in the stock market, people taking advantage of those arbitrages. But I'm interested in your thought on how this affects your customer.
Mm-hmm.
You're going out, you're getting listings for customers to sell their whole property. And now a customer wants to tokenize their property. How do you feel this is going to be an advantage to that customer?
It's going to be a whole new marketing opportunity because now we're almost like a rifle shot. The reason why people come to me to represent their interest and bring value to the property is I know people around the world, and I've got a team, an amazing team, both with my internal team and the Avison Young team, where we have offices all around the world. And we've been doing this a while. And I've got a saying, deals beget deals. And so you look to when somebody comes to you and says, well, why should I pick you to go market my property? One time I was in Dubai last week. I was with the governor of Texas and et cetera, and I see the future. And the way we market our property, again, is a rifle shot. So we take a general listing like this beautiful Ion building, and we put a drone videos and technology on it. And then I would go out to the world on this property to sign up and get an OM. Well, with the new blockchain tokenization, my target market to sell to is now infinite. I was going to come up with a high number. I think it's probably infinite.
Infinite, yes. The whole world is your target market.
And so, and what's really interesting, I think, you don't really know the effects until you get inside this matrix. And one of the things Ed and I were talking about this morning that I didn't even consider is being able to take currencies around the world that are not as valuable as the U.S. dollar, gold, well, not gold back anymore, but stable coin, which is, I think, going to be an amazing transformation of the value of currency in the U.S. dollar. But when you can look at that, and then let's just say in another part of the world that is in a currency devaluation situation, you can say, I want to take my $1 million and I'm going to go invest in a U.S. asset through stable coin. And all of a sudden, it's risk return. So if a traditional value on the property was worth 5, 6 cap, 7 cap, just to get the money out of the country, that's it. I don't care. Give me a 2 cap. I just don't want to lose 35%. Preservation of capital. And if I get a return, even better.
Correct.
And that's why I've been traveling the world. Well, my whole reason for traveling around the world was to get to the lowest cost of debt. And so when I go and sell a property, one of the things I do is I turn around and I interview the buyer. And it's like, well, tell me how you're putting your capital together. Tell me what your debt constant's going to be. Are you going to go to an institution? Is it family money? Or how far up are you going to go in the LTV curve? And so what is being created by this new tokenization is it's a whole new matrix of people now we're talking to. And it's going to be important to understand the securitization groups like Red Swan have a portfolio of properties that they're putting out there, but also combined with established and successful real estate brokers and investors that understand value. And if you can understand value, I've always said this, all the financial analysts that are around me, I will never hire a financial analyst that truly does not understand value.
Sure.
Right. And I'm a nerd. I know numbers. But if you can't explain to a billionaire on a Gulf Stream flying into New York why he had to buy a property, you're done.
Yeah. You're actually correct on that. And I used to travel to Asia as well.
Yeah.
Because, we're always trying to get the highest value for our customer. That was our job,
Exactly.
is to sell something, bring the highest value. And so in order to get the highest value, you had to find somebody who has a demand that's unique to others in the market, right? Mm-hmm. And somebody who's trying to place low yield capital they have,
Right.
they borrow at a low cost, they can actually buy at a higher price, right?
Right.
Or you have people who have a strong demand to get their money out of a country because they're worried about it devaluing in value.
Like capital.
So they're going to buy, and you're right, they're going to be pretty much agnostic about the interest rate they're getting.
Yes.
Is really moving their money out and making it, preserving that capital. So I think just like we used to do back in the olden days to try to get the highest price, we're still doing that today.
Right.
If you get a new listing from a customer who wants to get the highest price on their office building, and today office is not as attractive as it used to be in the United States,
Right.
but overseas, office is still attractive.
Yes.
They didn't have the same negative effect from COVID, and so they're looking to get their capital out, get a minimal amount of yield, which may be 2 or 3%, which means you can now sell capital to your sponsor in this market for maybe 3-4%, cap, which is unheard of right now in the traditional market, right?
That's what will turn the valuation not upside down, but it'll change it in a good way, because it will go to, well, before you have a limited market to sell your property to, and you have one person or a group of investors making the decision, and then you have a bank, if you're upside down in value, now the bank's involved in it, and you start to get in a foreclosure proceeding or a deed in lieu, all of a sudden, if you have this fractionalization, you can bypass that, you can move quicker than they can, and plus there's more liquidity involved in that asset class. So it's not going to be as much weight put on maybe, not weight, but I guess leverage that the bank will have, or the leading sponsor. You as an individual investor now
Have leverage.
have a seat at the table.
Right.
And you can accelerate your time frame on maybe if the bank is going to do something. This is amazing to think about. I guess we've been doing this all of our lives. And so if I had this ability to do this even a year ago, even a week ago, you would see transaction volume up tremendously.
Yeah. Well, think about this also, that a lot of our clients are either merchant builders who are building, stabilizing, and selling. They're flipping, right? They don't have a lot of capital, so they basically take the capital they have, they add value, and they exit, they get a profit, and rinse and repeat. And, that's good, but you would look at the converse, the adverse situation, where you had some buyers who buy and just hold.
Yes.
They refinance, they hold. And they hold those assets 10, 15 years.
Right.
In my experience, I look back at those investors, they're the ones who really won because they're sitting on an AUM of $2 billion, whereas those flippers, they're making cash and spending their cash, but they don't have much of AUM.
You're so right about that, because timing is everything. What's been really a blessing is I've met so many great people like Ed, and people from around the world and different investors. And some of our investors, again, I've been doing this for 35 years. It feels like it feels like I should be 35, right?
Yeah.
But you meet just great people, and some of the really risk takers would come in and they would buy, reduce expenses. They would ride the cap rate going down. And, some of my guys were making $300 million in 2 years.
Right.
And their exotic cars became very cool. And then there are other groups, and it's funny. If somebody says, "Oh, what did you learn in all your years of financing?" $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. Compounding interest is the key. And then the smart people in real estate, when you look at, and we all have been around very intelligent people, and there's, that guy knows, that lady knows valuations. It's all about liquidity. It's all about how long you can hold your breath underwater. It's that simple.
And that's a good point. That was another question I have for you, is that based on, the investor demand today for liquidity, because they've been through some rough times without liquidity, what do you think that's going to do for, fractional ownership and the future of real estate, with demands, the growing demand of liquidity?
Every day, whether I'm at the office or the home office or set up in a beautiful office like this, I usually have 2 to 3 screens, so I travel with, or 4 or 5 on the wall, and I'm paying attention to all the markets. I think you're going to see the commercial real estate tokenization market look like the stock market, but it's going to open up opportunities for people that are entrepreneurial, that are paying attention to the current market. And what's exciting is everything is accelerating so fast. Whereas in a traditional real estate deal, as we were talking, 8 months, 6 months, 9 months. I've had some that are 2.5 years.
Exactly.
Now we're looking at condensing that to 4 weeks.
Days, weeks, for sure. Yeah.
That changes everything.
It does. It really does.
And especially for the people that don't sleep and work 24/7. I mean, it's amazing the opportunity that's before us that I think will catch on as people start to see problems being eliminated because of speed and because of partners.
I think it also does wonders for the sponsors as well, because now they don't have to worry about these activities that might happen in the future. For example, recapitalizing based on maturity of a note, or having to sell the asset to give their shareholders liquidity.
Right.
You build a beautiful asset in a great location, it becomes iconic.
Right.
But you have to sell that asset because you need liquidity to give back to your shareholders that you promised to give liquidity to. Well, that means you lost that beautiful asset. It's going to continue to go up in value. Right. And so I think now owners will be able to have the benefit of building or buying and enhancing a beautiful asset and keeping it for the next 40, 50 years and not have to worry about recapitalization because they've sold out their equity on it. They're now generating significant cash flow as that asset improves in value.
That's a great point. And doing this for 35 years and selling, pretty much all types of asset classes with the exception of apartments that you've been so successful in. We started selling infrastructure assets 5-7 years ago. We're in the great Houston, Texas, energy capital of the world. I've never seen value creation and stability like I've seen in infrastructure. And now we're taking infrastructure and investing throughout the world. And that's a perfect case in point. Some of these infrastructure locations, you don't ever want to sell. You keep them for 50 years. Right. So then you can get into a situation where you can start to what's the right word, create a capital stack that doesn't have to have a short-term lender involved.
Correct.
Maybe it's 100% tokenization because that person that says, you know what, I'm gonna hang in that thing for 100 years.
Right.
And then when you look to AI, and that's where the $5 billion is coming in, we're in the early parts of AI. And AI is going to accelerate tokenization. But it's interesting being in the energy capital of the world, the key to AI is what?
Power. Yeah, power. You need power.
And so the utilities are being taxed.
Right.
Overtaxed. And everybody's running to the utilities. Well, to pull from the grid takes 3 to 5, 7 years to do a study. But then you look at, okay, what are the different forms of energy you start to look at? Well, everything now is going back to just simply simple cycle, combined cycle, natural gas turbines. Well, to go get a turbine is 5 to 7 years. Can you imagine the ability to bring somebody an asset today versus have to wait for 7 years? And these guys are making billions of dollars a year. You're going to somebody and saying, because we know real estate, because we have certain connections, because we've been doing this so long, and we're in Houston, Texas, I can accelerate that time frame for 5 to 7 years, and you'll be in business in 18 months.
There you go.
And then you just made somebody billions of dollars.
There's so many synergies and benefits that we're not really talking about and aren't really mentioned to the world. But I'll just give you one simple one to think about. Bitcoin is the strongest cryptocurrency in the world, and the Ethereum probably the second strongest in the world. These assets continue to go up in value and hold their value, but they don't distribute any income. Right. So a Bitcoin owner never wants to sell their Bitcoin because it just keeps going up in value, and they're thinking it's going to hit, 300,000 to one Bitcoin or more.
Which makes it an expensive pizza to buy, right?
It makes it
in the original.
Yeah. So you don't want to be spending it, but it is volatile. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. If Bitcoin topped out about a month ago at 120 per Bitcoin, 120,000, and a person had $10 million worth of Bitcoin, and at that price point, they decided to buy $5 million worth of real estate. The nice thing here is that they can borrow against that Bitcoin, and lenders will probably lend to them at 6, 7%, maybe even 5%, right? And they can take that proceed and buy a real estate asset that's generating 8% yield, right? Well, right there is already a positive arbitrage of borrowing against your Bitcoin, it costs 4 or 5%, even 6%.
Yes.
And buying real estate at this paying 8%. That 2% arbitrage you can use to buy more Bitcoin at whatever price point. That is a perfect scenario for a Bitcoin owner because now they have two assets that are improving in value.
Right.
And one that is paying for the other, right? But also, think about the lender who is doing DeFi lending on that Bitcoin. It's usually people borrow against a Bitcoin to go buy a Lamborghini or a vacation home or something that's not income producing.
Yeah.
So the lender is still stuck with that volatility of the Bitcoin.
Right.
But if the person was only going to use that proceed to buy another real estate asset that's income producing, the lender feels much more comfortable because they now have two assets for collateral. They have the Bitcoin and the real estate.
That's producing return.
That's producing return. So therefore, they can actually provide a lower yield of interest for that loan because they're double collateralized, right? What does that mean? That means that arbitrage, now they can borrow at 4% instead of 6%, and the arbitrage is now 4% if you're getting 8% on the real estate. There's 4% pure profit to turn back. These are models and strategies that you're going to find people taking advantage of because Bitcoin's already at $2 trillion, right? And it's going to keep going up.
Yes.
That's a lot of purchasing power that's being untapped.
It goes back to what I keep saying, the matrix. I don't know if that's the right way to look at it, but it's when you go into a room and you think it's going this way and then it comes back around. You're like, I didn't even see that movement.
I didn't see that. I mean, that's the key. I think the industry needs to learn. There's a knowledge gap right now around technology and where we're headed. And I think people, some of them are just not there, not interested because they, scared of change.
Right.
But then you have those who are the younger generation, this next gen, who is just swallowing this stuff up. I mean, they're already trading in cryptocurrency. They're already establishing wallets. They're buying NFTs. They're very interested in digital activity. I had a broker from Merrill Lynch call me and say, Ed, I really like what you're doing at Red Swan because I think that's the future. This was like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
He said, I cannot, the world is changing. My clients are getting old. They're handing their portfolios over to their kids.
Yes.
I cannot for the life of me get that kid to come to my office and talk about their goals like their parents did.
Right.
So I have no idea how to communicate with these kids. I feel like I'm going to lose this account, right? Well, I think you and I are providing, content for those kids to invest in because they like digital. They know about real estate. They understand it. We're making it affordable.
Yes.
And we're making it global. So I think we're tapping into that $84 trillion, this transfer of ownership from baby boomers to next gen by providing hard assets to invest in.
That's an amazing number. You got to slow down and say $84 trillion of liquidity
in the next 10 years.
In the next 10 years.
Yep. There's a transfer. Baby boomers are like us, are getting old.
Yes.
And we're not going to be doing this forever.
Yes.
We're going to hand over our portfolios to our kids, and they're going to take it over.
Yeah.
And they have a different mindset than we do in terms of value and in terms of what we buy. And they're not going to be looking at old school, going to get, fiat dollars. They're already in digital. So why take your digital money, convert it back to paper money, and pay more money to buy something and pay more in terms of cost when you can buy something with your digital, click a couple buttons, sends your digital currency over to Red Swan. They send you shares of this asset. Your cost to do that was in pennies.
Yes.
And you now have assets that you can trade upon and hold on that's generating income. So the world is different now.
Well, and that's what's exciting because they talk about how AI is going to displace a lot of labor. It now has an opportunity for the people that can take advantage of this to be anywhere in the world and be your own producer of a real estate empire and do it all on your phone or your computer. And you just invest in real estate and go in and out of real estate around the world. I think so many doors are going to open because of this liquidity, and it's so comforting to hear real estate is a liquid investment because it's always been a liquid investment, and that's why it feels like I've been in a car doing 55, and now I got Lewis Hamilton saying let's ride in a Ferrari.
Yeah. Let's go at 185, right? I'm hearing there's some skepticism out there, and I'm curious as to what you're hearing in terms of concerns and how we could go about converting those concerns into positive adoption.
Yes, it's great, and I'll tell you my journey on how I really kind of got into crypto understanding and then blockchain. And in 2019, I brought a major power plant to the market, and it was the largest in North America. And my crypto buddies called me up and said, "Dude, you know what you're sitting on?" I'm like, "No, you're sitting on the largest Bitcoin operation in North America." And I'm like, "What's Bitcoin?" I kind of knew what it was. Now you're probably an expert, but I know a lot more about it. Went to a lot of conventions, and it was interesting. And so I started to hear from these crypto investors. And I want to tell you something. These guys that are investing and operating crypto,
Yeah.
they're smart.
Very smart.
You know, they speak Mandarin. They think exponentially.
The global thinking.
Yes. What I kept hearing in 2020, 2021, 2022, and so forth was blockchain. And that's the real foundation of all of this movement. And then I started to see why it is, and it's verification of the ledger.
Right.
You do a much better job at explaining that. And I think that's where, as people understand blockchain and not tie tokenization to maybe a crypto deal,
Yeah.
which I don't think that very many people do in the marketplace, but they're still not too sure about all of this.
Yeah.
Blockchain is what changes the world.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you that there's a lack of knowledge out there,
Yes.
and people are misinformed about blockchain, tokenization, and cryptocurrency. You know, blockchain is a factor that produces cryptocurrency, but also produces other digital items as well.
Right.
And the blockchain is just a ledger that keeps track of all that.
Right.
People don't understand it. And I think slowly but surely people are going to become more familiar with it
Yes.
and start understanding it as they pay attention, because they're going to start seeing success
Right.
all around them where people were taking advantage, just like they're seeing in crypto.
Right.
People thought, I don't need that at all. But when they started hearing about so many people who've made so much money
Right.
and enriched their lives by buying crypto,
Right.
now people are starting to buy. Now institutions are buying.
Right.
Now crypto is being held in balance sheets for banks, right?
Right.
And being leveraged by banks in terms of collateral. So I think it's just a lack of knowledge that's going to turn pretty quickly. But I think that also that first mover advantage,
Yes.
is going to be very important to separate the winners from the losers.
Yes.
I heard this phrase a long time ago: if you're not first, you're last.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where I heard that.
Ricky
but-
Bobby.
Is that okay? Not first, you're last. He's
Yeah.
a race car driver, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're not first to grab this adoption that's taking place and use it in a way, at least get your mind focused on that, then you're going to be falling backwards in terms of your productivity
Right.
and keeping up with people who are using it. If you're not using AI today
Exactly.
in your business, in the way you respond to people, in the way you think,
Yes.
in terms of get analysis, then you're actually falling backwards, because those who are using AI have that much more advantage over you, and eventually could put you out of business.
100%.
So, I think that's something that we both have to kind of help to educate the market, because we want our clients to be successful.
Right.
And the one way to make our clients successful is drill in their heads what they have to do
Right.
to hit that next horizon, that new frontier.
Right.
And that means understand blockchain technology.
Well, and what's interesting you said too is, responding to opportunities quickly is where a lot of the money is made. In our world, people said, you make your money on the buy. Well, this window we have of 5-10 years, as this saying, it accelerates very quickly. Every other form of technology and opportunities that came out, those ones that were early in and jumped on it is the ones that made a lot of money.
I mean, perfect example from the clients we're taking care of right now, who have large portfolios. They're thinking about it.
Right.
One person came to me that has, 35,000 apartment units around the country, and says, "Look, I want to tokenize. I understand it. I want it, and I want to do it, and I want you to get me started on it." So we're trying to tokenize 6 of their assets right now. But you think about it. If he has 35,000 units and roughly almost $3 billion in assets, and he's able to pull out, $1.5 billion of fresh capital and still own those assets, he's way ahead of those competitors who have 30,000 plus units, because
Correct.
he now has 30,000 units and $1.5 billion of fresh powder that he can roll into
Exactly.
35,000 more units, right?
Exactly.
That's a significant advantage over those who are still sitting with their money trapped in their asset.
But think about this too. Think about now he has ability to lower that interest rate, because the confidence he's selling to the tokenization market versus the traditional investor institutional market on that big of a portfolio, you compress a basis point.
Correct.
I mean, 100, 150 basis points. You're talking a lot of money.
So he's selling at a higher value than the average person is.
Bingo.
And that's another major way to take out your competitor from the marketplace,
Yes.
right? So again, it's lack of knowledge, but hopefully we'll be successful, and the clients that come to us and utilize us will be further ahead than those who don't.
Yes.
So it brings me to my last question, is that, the industry is changing, and we're seeing that tradable securities are now very common in the marketplace. And I think that's changing the role of the brokerage and advisory industry.
Yes.
How do you see that, coming into play for your activities at Avis & Young?
Well, if you're not, what was it, Lou Holtz, Notre Dame said, if you're not learning every day, you're dying every day. If you're not growing every day, you're dying every day. And I think that's great advice, because if you're not retooling, if you're not looking at ways to compound and to leverage your knowledge, I love having young people around me because they have so many fresh new ideas. I've got a lot of young people on my team, but I think that it'll streamline with AI, but I think the two industries will come together, and if they don't, I think that you could see the world we knew is not going to exist.
Right.
And that could certainly happen with transactions that are being really more sold through securities groups like Red Swan versus maybe traditional bigger houses.
Right.
Got a favorite saying, you'll love this: I don't sell to buyers, I sell to lenders. So now your lending market has become the tokenization market. And if you don't have the platform to reach that tokenization the market, then you're not going to have the ability to go to a client and say, I'm going to go sell your property. Well, tell me how you're going to maximize value for my property. Well, I'm tied into tokenization.
Right.
I think that's the game changer.
Well, that means that traditional real estate brokers are going to have to become savvy with regards to digital security sales.
Yes.
And if they're really serious, get a license
Yes.
to be able to sell securities and now be involved in selling fractional shares of real estate on behalf of their investors. And I think that's a game changer. Even if they're walking a line between traditional
Right.
and new,
Right.
they still have the traditional projects they're selling one way, which is whole properties, and
Right.
there's still buyers who are going to do that, still
Correct.
family offices who are going to do that, but they're also in the game because those who are attracted to digital,
Yes.
they now have product to satisfy the digital world as well, which is growing at a CAGR of like 20% per year.
Yes.
So if you're doing both, you're maintaining and hopefully enlarging your market share as a real estate broker in whatever community you're in.
100%. The successful houses going forward will be a combination of big real estate companies and groups like yours that kind of come together and sell a product to provide investors and opportunities to people that can go a number of different ways. But with the tokenization, I think we'll look back on our time and then look back on a time that we're currently in and say, wow, we're to the 10th power.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to be working with you. We've worked together in the old days when we were with CW, and we've watched each other, admired each other, but now we're coming together in this new
Yes.
technology, and I'm really excited of the example that we're going to set for the industry in terms of commercial real estate. I think people are going to be watching our success
Yes.
and how we're doing it, and I think it's going to set a foundation for others to follow, because success brings more success.
Yes.
And there's no better individuals to show that success than two veterans,
Right.
goats,
Yes.
as you will,
There you go.
in the industry than you and I. So I'm really excited about what we're doing together.
It's an honor, Ed, and the visionary you've been, and just the respect to have for you, your family, and your company. It's an honor.
So, well, let's appreciate this interview. Look forward to the future, and I look forward, like I said, just continue working with you and selling this good news to the rest of the world.
Look forward to it, sir. All right. Thank you. So there you have it. This conversation has made one thing very clear. The future of real estate investing won't be defined by traditional financing alone. It'll be shaped by trust, technology, efficiency,
and strategic collaboration. Tokenization isn't a trend, it's a tool that when used responsibly can unlock liquidity and expand access and elevate the investor's total experience. At Red Swan, we're committed to building this future with partners who understand the value of innovation and the importance of compliance. To those watching today, if you're ready to explore how tokenization of equity or debt can fit in your capital strategy, let's talk. The time is right and the infrastructure is ready and the opportunity is here today.